Okay, so today I'm going to do a video that I have been planning on doing all offseason. I just haven't gotten around to it. A lot of people have asked me, how did I win exactly $19,000 last year playing fantasy football? And they want to get a full breakdown of how much I spent, what were the results of everything. So I'm going to do that full breakdown here tonight in a live stream. And I'm also going to go ahead and do a live draft afterwards on Underdog just to kind of show you guys, how that whole process works and everything like that. So just make sure to go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support. I'm trying everything I can to get us ready for week one, but I'm going to do a live draft tonight after I break down my 2024 winnings here. So really it kind of just, the thing that has to be mentioned right out of the gate is that best ball is the way that I won $19,000. And it doesn't come from just doing one draft, right? I won $19,000 collectively between 3 different teams in fantasy football last year. Now, there was one particularly really big winner in fantasy football for me in 2024, and we will go through that exactly and maybe give some tips on how it could possibly apply to 2025 fantasy football. So, the first thing I want to do is break down exactly how much I spent. So, I went in and spent $2,678 on Underdog last year to win a total of $19,000. So what you can kind of see right here is a full breakdown of every tournament that I entered, every draft contest that I entered. So, there's what is that? Probably close to 15 draft contests that I entered to win all that money. I'm going to try to see if this will give you a better view of it here. So that would be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 21 contests right there. So everything in the green and yellow is going to be regular season fantasy football. So I entered a total of 18 total regular season fantasy football entries. And obviously the entry fees vary on all of these. That, adds up to the total entry fees that I spent being $26.78. So you can see the amount of teams I drafted here as well, and the amount of teams I advanced to the playoffs here. So in total, I advanced 14 teams out of, I think it was like 90 to the playoffs. So that advancement rate actually is not that strong. So you can see right here, I also put the advancement rate that I got on every single tournament here, and I advanced in like 12% of my best ball mania teams. Again, that's not that strong of an advancement rate. You typically advance in about 16.7% of most of these leagues. So in that one, I was under the expected advancement rate there. But the point of this video, and what I hope you take away from it, is that if you are trying to be a big winner in 2025 fantasy football, it's all about giving yourself the shot to do it. Because what you'll see here is that I made the finals in 3 different contests. The Rottweiler, the Pug 2, and then I made it in the Gauntlet, which we will go over here in a little bit. So I want to start out by breaking down my Rottweiler team that ended up making it to the finals. So the Rottweiler team was the big winner for me. So I won $15,000 in the Rottweiler tournament last year. I placed 4th place out of 13,500 total people. I got 4th place out of that many people. That's pretty ridiculous results right there. There's obviously a lot of luck that goes into that, but I would argue there's a lot of skill that goes into that as well. So this one right here, it's just going to show you the week 17 performances, which was the championship week of this one. So I had Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, and obviously Burrow went off in that week 17 game. Then I went ahead and had Tyjae Spears do really well for me in the playoffs, had Derrick Henry do really well for me in that week 17 game. And the wide receivers, I had that Ladd McConkey stack with Justin Herbert, which if I only had Herbert and not Joe Burrow, I would have been fine, just wouldn't have been as good. And then I had T. Higgins to stack with Burrow. Now that stack was lethal in the week 17 matchup. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown at wide receiver as well to give me some more points. But look at that wide receiver room. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, T. Higgins, Ladd McConkey, Jackson Smith, and Jigba were my first 5 wide receivers. So the draft strategy I did in this one, and I actually cover this in a different video this offseason, was I went for the wide receiver heavy approach, which is to get 5 wide receivers before round 7 ends in fantasy football drafts. So that's what I did in this particular draft. And then I ended up doing really well at tight end. Like I got Brock Bowers at a very big discount. I think last year at the time he was going at like the 10th round, the 11th round, something like that. And I grabbed Tyler Conklin, who did nothing for me the whole season until week 17. So that was pretty cool to be able to see that week 17 result right there. And again, 4th place out of 13,500. So that was a, really sweet team that I put together. Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert were 2 good quarterbacks. Obviously, Joe Burrow carried the water for the majority of the year, but my running backs were, I had 3 particularly good ones. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, and Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy was a late round pick last year, ended up coming through in a lot of different weeks. So, yeah, this was a team that was really strong. This was easily my best team in 2024. So, the next one that I want to go through is the Pug 2, which was the other tournament that I made it to the finals in for the regular season. Now, this one was a smaller payout right here. In the Rottweiler, first place got $50,000. In the Pug 2, you can get $20,000 for first place and $10,000 to second place. But once you get to the range I was in, 16 to 20, $500. But if you apply that range, like if you finish top 16, top 20 in a Best Ball Mania tournament, your payout is significantly higher than this. You're in like the $100,000 range. So it just goes to show you it depends on the tournament that you're in as well. So this one had 9,300 total people. Actually, to be specific, 9,288 entrants in that tournament right there. And I placed 20th out of that amount of people. So this team I thought was pretty strong as well. So I ended up having Joe Burrow again. He was a big playoff winner, which is really the case that you'll find with a lot of these tournament drafts, is that a lot of people's teams will be very similar. Like this guy's team, he had Jared Goff in that week 17 win. But this team right here, second place had Joe Burrow. Third place had Joe Burrow. Fourth place had Jared Goff. So 2 quarterbacks were on the same 4 teams, the top 4. So it's not uncommon to see a bunch of Joe Burrow and a lot of Jared Goffs from last year, the big winners. So Joe Burrow was my main quarterback. I ended up hitting on him and swinging and missing on Will Levis and Justin Fields as well. But this running back room was pretty strong. I had Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook. Javonte was a hit and a miss. Brian Robinson Jr. had a couple good games. But Chuba Hubbard, as many people know, was my guy last year. He was on this team. And Tyrone Tracy was also on this team as my last running back on the board as well. So basically, outside of Javonte, every one of these guys had a good week. Javonte had one good week, but all these guys had several different good weeks. So really strong running back room there. Wide receiver room here was okay. A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman Jr. did well for me last week. Zay Flowers had some games. Jordan Addison definitely had some games. Sutton had some games. Other than that, though, it wasn't as strong of a wide receiver room as the last one. And then Tyler Conklin, oddly enough, was the common thread here between the teams that ended up doing well for me. Because he never really did much for me outside of week 17. So definitely interesting because these tournament style drafts where you can win really big money, they're different than normal fantasy football. They're all based on weekly performances, and you don't have to make the start-sit decision, which is why I advocate to do these types of drafts if you're a new person in fantasy particularly, and you don't want to keep up with doing, a bunch of mid-season roster management all year long for redraft teams. It's different, and it's a lot easier because you just draft it, and then that's it. You just see how it scores. So the last one, if you're totaling those two up, that's 15.5. So in one more draft, I won $3,500. And that draft is not your typical fantasy football. It's not even typical best ball. This was playoff best ball. NFL playoff best ball. So the difference here between that and regular season best ball is that playoff best ball, you're picking players that are on playoff teams in the NFL. And the idea here really, if you understand what this is is you want to pick the players on the teams you think will go to the Super Bowl because they will be scoring for you. Because, for example, right, like I had on this team Jaden Daniels, who a lot of people didn't think was going to make it past round 1 last year in the playoffs. Well, obviously he made it to the NFC Championship game, and he did really well for me. So it was a pretty cool thing to be able to get him on my team and have him score really big those first 2 weeks while Mahomes was on bye in week 1 of the playoffs. And then in week 2, Jaden Daniels is better against the Detroit Lions. So that's the idea here. Now, I drafted Devon Achane because at the time this draft happened, I thought the Miami Dolphins could sneak into the playoffs and I could get a really good performance from Achane in week 1 of the playoffs. That didn't end up happening. J.K. Dobbins was a swing and a miss. I thought the Chargers would win their first playoff game. They did not. But Saquon Barkley was in the Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes. So I had one quarterback scoring for me in this playoff best ball and one running back in the Super Bowl. Then I had 2 wide receivers / tight ends scoring for me with Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce. So this finals list basically was all teams that had players that made it to the Super Bowl. And I got 82nd place out of 90,000 people in this one. Good year in fantasy. So this amounted to $3,500 won in this tournament alone. Again, playoff best ball is really tough. You need to be good at predicting who's going to make it to the Super Bowl. And in my experience, betting on the Chiefs is never a bad idea. And betting on the Eagles is also not a bad idea as well. So that's kind of it. I mean, I just wanted to break down for people who are asking me this offseason to break down my full winnings and how much I spent in 2024. Because the message should be that at the end of the day, like, to win big, you're going to have to spend big. Like, this amount of money that I won, $19,000, well, it happened because I was playing a bunch of different best ball drafts. Spent $2,600 on best ball teams last year. It was worth every penny because I returned my investment by, almost 10 times, right? So definitely worth a swing if you can afford to do it, in my opinion. I was really lucky and at the same time drafted really well in certain leagues, so it was really cool. Really cool that happened last year. This year I'm in even more drafts, so we'll see how lucky I can get this year and how well I drafted this year as well. But yeah, I just wanted to break that down for people who are asking me about it all off season long. So like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now let's get into an actual real fantasy football draft. And honestly, this might be my last draft of the 2025 season. So I'm tempted to get into the Puppy 4. And I probably will end up doing that because a lot of these down here are weekly fantasy football. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the Puppy 4, which if you're not on Underdog, I would suggest getting in on it now before these drafts end because it is a lot of fun. Like, even if you just do one draft, I think it is worth doing. So the Puppy 4 is a $5 entry, and the prizes are pretty awesome. $100,000 to first place, $75K to second, $50K to third place, $25K to fourth. Like, these are pretty serious entry, pretty serious prizes for a $5 entry fee if you do really well. So I'm going to go ahead and enter the Puppy 4, and we will do our probably final draft of 2025 fantasy football. So I'm going to, for those interested, drop a link in the chat so you can go play best ball if you have not done so already. Again, I think it's worth it. It is a lot of fun. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't win, you're going to have a lot of fun. That's the bottom line. The other thing that they're doing right now that's really good is Saquon Barkley, actually, they have a gimme pickup right now. Let's see if I can see it from here. Saquon Barkley, so it doesn't count for me because I'm already a heavy user on Underdog. But right now, what Underdog is offering for new customers is a gimme pick. Like all he has to do is get half a yard or a total yard, and you end up winning. That his over, his higher lower line right now is 0 yards total in week 1. So I would say give yourself a shot. Get in on this pick right here, because I think it is pretty sweet. Oh man, I missed the pick. I need to have someone just do it for me. So, as I'm live, I'll also answer some questions. We're going to start out with Saquon Barkley, which is whatever, I guess. But we won't miss another pick now that I've got that in the chat. So, we'll answer some questions while I'm in here. This not clickbait? What do you mean 19K? Yeah, just went through it right now. It's definitely not clickbait for sure. It is definitely not clickbait. It is, it's real. I won $19,000 last year playing fantasy football. Again, I don't want to come off like it's all skill, right? Like there's a bunch of luck involved. You will not automatically win $19,000 if you listen to me all year. Like that won't happen just automatically. Like it does take a lot of luck, but I did have a lot of fun doing it, which I think at the end of the day is the biggest thing, is that you got to have fun doing it, because I would have had fun if I didn't win any money. Like it's all about just having fun. Elijah, what's going on? Good to see you in here tonight. MDHD, yada yada. Would you mind helping with a trade question once you're done, bro? I'm cracking my head. Yeah, going through questions right now. So you guys put in your questions in the chat. I'll go in order, but if someone does want to get their question answered immediately, a super chat is the way to jump the line. Either way, appreciate y'all being in here, and I will answer as many questions as I can tonight. Brian, what's going on? I appreciate the super chat. 12-team PPR, 2 flex. Quarterback is Bo Nix. Running backs are Amarian Hampton, Devon Achane, RJ, Benson, Warren, Bigsby, Tyjae Spears on reserves. I like that running back room, especially Achane and Hampton. Nico, Neighbors, Tet, Ricky, and Mooney are your wide receivers. And Goddard, Loveland are your 2 tight ends. So here's my thing right out of the gate. Let me make this pick really quick. Well, I might end up just doing a double hero running back on this one, since I auto-drafted Saquon Barkley. I got to go with Saquon. I got to go with Josh Jacobs, as many of you know. So I went with Josh Jacobs in round 2. But my thing with this type of build is that, look, if you are in a traditional redraft league, right, which it kind of looks like you are, I don't think that there's much need to have 2 tight ends on your roster clogging up a roster spot. I think that if you really want to maximize your team, and particularly if you have an active lead with trade partners who are willing to trade, well, I'm not picking Tyreek Hill. I'll go with Mike. I was tempted to go with a quarterback. But my thing with a redraft league is if you have league mates that are active and they're willing to do trades, I think that this is the type of scenario where you just punt on 2 tight ends and 2 quarterbacks, because the more running backs and wide receivers you have on your team, the better you will do on the trade market. And I think that Dallas Goedert, to me, I think is a dead weight on your roster, personally. Like, I really do think that he really isn't worth too much on your roster. So I wouldn't say that he's a guy that I think is necessary to keep when you have Colson Loveland. So for me personally, like, I'd go on the waiver wire, try to find another wide receiver particularly, and maybe see if you can get, you know, a trade partner going with, you know, like a Ricky Pearsall and a maybe like a Jalen Warren, and see if you can really upgrade a wide receiver. That's what I would do personally. I think that at the end of the day that tight ends are interchangeable if you don't have a top tier one, and you really don't. Like, I think Loveland could be good, but at the same time, he is a rookie, and history is stacked up against him. Recent history would indicate he'll do well, but we all know that tight ends in fantasy football don't historically hit very well. So I think you could be in a spot where you entertains tight ends anyways. And to me, when you're in that position, it's just like, if you need a tight end, go grab one off the waiver wire. So I would drop Goddard, maybe try to trade him first if someone else really needs a tight end, but I don't think he has much trade value. I would try to, if I can't get a trade partner, I would try to drop him. Go grab another wide receiver on the wire, someone like a Dante Thornton, right, who I covered in my waiver wire video, and then try to get a big upgraded wide receiver by selling off one of your running backs and one of those other wide receivers. Appreciate the super chat. Again, that is how you jump the line and get your question answered immediately, but until then, we'll just go in order. Kevin S., what's going on? Good to see you in here. Appreciate all y'all being in here. Well, Hurts falling here is very attractive. I think I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'm going to have to do it. Let's see what wide receivers available. Jalen Waddle. I'm not going to get Ibuka because I would be obligated to get the Baker stack. And with Jalen Hurts, I'm not getting Baker anymore. So I'll go Jalen Waddle. So my first 5 picks are Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs for the double hero, Mike Evans at the 3rd round, Jalen Hurts in the 4th, and Jalen Waddle in the 5th. Let's see what else we got going on. Jew Brownie, what's going on? Josh Jacobs, of course. Yeah. Yep. You know my winning team has to have Josh Jacobs. This is why I keep trying to tell everyone, Josh Jacobs is the real deal. Sergio Martinez, what's going on? Would you trade JSN for A.J. Brown? They're back-to-back my rankings. The way I always put this is that, like, Jackson Smith and Jigba ended up moving a spot over A.J. Brown in my recent wide receiver rankings. Those of you who have been paying attention, you've seen that. And the reason I said that he did move over him is because of that injury. Like, I just can't trust that he's going to be there. Now, when he's healthy, he has more upside on a weekly basis than Jackson Smith and Jigba does. I'm not debating that. What I am debating is how often will we see 0 performances put up from A.J. Brown. Like, with Jackson Smith and Jigba, I don't worry about him being boom or bust. I know he won't boom as hard, but I also know that he's not going to miss out on a lot of, games where he gets like 4 points or 5 points or something like that. So I think I'd probably stick with Jackson Smith and Jigba. They're just too close to my rankings to where I don't feel like it's anything but a lateral move. MDHDHD, what's going on? My glorious king, Jaden Daniels. Yeah, he was a big help for me in that playoff run. No question. He was big. Holly, what's going on? I have Josh Jacobs and Bucky Irving. Should I trade Hampton and Herbert for Lamar and Montgomery? Hampton is my flex, but I also got DJ Moore on the bench. Let me make this pick, and then I will address the question. Well, I've kind of boxed myself into a corner with wide receivers. I'm going to go with Jerry Jeudy. Okay, so Jacobs and Bucky. Should I trade Hampton and Herbert for Lamar and Monty? Man, I get the big Lamar upgrade over Herbert. I just really think that Monty is your RB3. Like, I guess as your RB3, Monty is not a terrible move. I'm going to go Keon Coleman. Yeah, it's not it's like the Lamar upside is so great. I do think that Hampton as your flex is so elite that gives you your own unique upside. I think I'd actually hang on to Hampton. I think I would. You also have DJ Moore on your bench. Yeah, I mean, to me, I think that's a guy I would try to move if you really want to get like a quarterback upgrade. I don't think there's anything wrong with having Herbert as your starting quarterback. I really don't. Like, it's not ideal, but it's not the worst thing you could do. I don't know. I'm curious to know what the chat thinks. What side of the trade would you take? Amari and Hampton and Justin Herbert, or Lamar Jackson and Dave Montgomery? Curious to know what the chat thinks about this one. Kevin S., what's going on? Hope all is well with you as well. Rate, please. 14-man PPR, fourth pick. Hurts, Ladd, Sutton, Gibbs, Pollard, Ferguson, Butker. Houston defense benches Swift, Caleb Johnson, Josh Downs, K. Allen. Callan? K. Allen. Keenan Allen, I'm assuming. 14-man. I like the Hurts quarterback. Ladd, Sutton, Gibbs, Pollard. Yeah, I think it's a really solid 14-team squad. I think that look, the people in leagues that are bigger than 12 teams, which is standard, they know how hard it is to draft in a 14-team league. Like this is a strong 14-team roster. The only concern I have is like I'm not personally a Jake Ferguson guy. Just not my guy. Like I was so counting on him last year to do well, and he was so bad. So for me personally, I'm not a big, Jake Ferguson guy. I would rather take it someone like Kyle Pitts. But I know I might sound crazy with the Kyle Pitts pick too. Like I'm well aware of that. So other than that, I think you do look really good. The other thing I would say is the Houston on defense pick is good season long, but I don't think they're going to be good week one, which is how you should play defenses. You should be looking at it from a week-to-week perspective. I'm going to take my third running back with J.K. Dobbins here. Jaden Reed, I don't even know. He's got a Jones fracture in his foot. Like, I really don't know about that. We'll see if Jaden Higgins makes it back to me. If he doesn't, I might end up going with Colston Loveland. I'll go Jaden Higgins. So I go 5 wide receivers now. Not loving the wide receiver room, to be honest, but it's going to have to do. Let's see what else we got. Seems like from what I've seen so far, the majority of people think you should take that Lamar trade. So maybe I'm in the outlier. Maybe I'm in the minority on this one. Chaludo, what can I get for trading Scary Terry? Well, obviously, my opinion doesn't always line up with everybody's in the community. I'm not shy about my opinions. With my rankings, you guys know how off the wall some of my rankings are. You won't go anywhere else to see Tyreek Hill as low ranked as he is for me, and Josh Jacobs as high ranked as he is for me as well. So you have to know what other people are thinking. So the way that the community as a whole values Terry McLaurin is somewhere around, the Devontae Adams range, the Marvin range. So the equivalent of that for a running back is like a Travion Henderson, a James Cook, a Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara type. So you have to kind of look at it like that. Now, the question becomes, is it worth it, right? And to me, the community is overvalued Terry McLaurin. Not overvalued. I don't even know if I would say overvalued. Like, I acknowledge his value when he's out there healthy with Jaden Daniels. I get it. But my thing with it is that I'm still worried about his start to the season getting screwed up because of the the fact that he wasn't there. So I would personally try to get someone like, like I just talked about, like Marvin Harrison. I would try to get Jackson Smith-Njigba, see if someone would take that. I would try to get James Cook. I would try to get Travion Henderson. That's where I would start personally. Owen Sharon, what's going on? Tyrone Tracy or Aaron Jones? Well, I'm assuming it's for this week, and I don't want to reveal too much of my running back rankings, which will be live tomorrow. So stay tuned for the running back rankings list tomorrow. But I could tell you the way I'm leaning is definitely Tyrone Tracy. The good thing about him is that he's not going to share the backfield with Cam Scatterby right away, if it ever happens. And I like the matchup versus Washington a lot better than the matchup versus the Bears for Aaron Jones. If it's in a draft, I would still pick Tyrone Tracy. Okay. I am going to go ahead and pick Braylon Allen. I just can't bring myself to pick Marvin very much. I just really can't. And then maybe I'll tie off my quarterback position. What kind of stack can I get? CJ available? Yes, he is. I'll stack CJ with Jaden Higgins. The other thing to note about best ball, if you're not familiar with it, is that best ball is different. And especially when you're drafting as many teams as I've drafted. Like I've drafted, this is probably my 160th draft on Underdog. So exposure to players is a thing you want to pay attention to, right? Because I would have realistically most of the time went with Tank Bigsby instead of Braylon Allen there. But I have more of Tank than I do of Braylon. I have more of, guys like Jordan Love than I do of CJ Stroud, but I wanted to stack CJ with Jaden Higgins. I don't have any Green Bay Packers players to stack. So exposure to players is a real thing. That another guy that jumps off the page is J.K. Dobbins. That's a guy I don't typically take in best ball leagues, but that's the reason I'm taking him more now is because I don't have much of him. So if he hits well, then I do want in on him on at least one league, right? So when you draft that many teams, it's important to keep that stuff in mind. Kevin S., what pick are you? I am here at the 103. Jake, what's going on? I'm aiming for 20K this season. Let's go. Kevin S., what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Thank you. Yeah, wasn't too happy about Ferguson either. Yeah, for some reason I've seen some people in the fantasy community get back in on him. And listen, I'm not here to dog people on it because, again, like, Kyle Pitts has screwed us over for how many years straight? Like, but I'm back in on him mostly because of the price. Now, the same thing applies to Jake Ferguson, right? But at the end of the day, whether it was Kyle Pitts or Jake Ferguson, my point on it is at that late in a redraft league, like, it's best to play the waivers with tight ends. That's the bottom line. So I think that whether it was Kyle Pitts or Jake Ferguson that you got, the waiver wire is the best for the tight end position. And I think that in your particular situation with your team build, like, it looks great other than Jake Ferguson. But again, you can easily just like drop him and pick up someone else off waivers. Like, it's not that hard to drop Jake Ferguson when you basically got him at the end of your draft. So that's one thing to look forward to. And of course, dude, if you really want to get ahead of everybody on the waiver wire, like, there's no beating our automatic waiver wire tool. It's the greatest thing in fantasy sports history. Like, nothing has ever been brought to the market like what we brought this year. I'm going to go Trey Benson and then round out my running back room. I'm only going to pick 5. I've drafted so much of Trey Benson. He's like an auto draft in his range. He really is. Like, I've got no problem putting him on so many teams. I love his cost. But yeah, the waiver tool, like, nobody's ever done what we're doing. So there's not going to have to be any more like late nights. Like, you know how sometimes like certain players that you thought would be picked up are still available after waivers run at 2 a.m? Well, a lot of freaks will go up, and maybe you're one of them, because I've always been one of them who wakes themselves up and tries to get the player off waivers. Well, the automatic waiver wire tool eliminates that hassle. So you can sleep through the night and mind your business and get some good sleep while other people are freaking out around you. That's the beauty. I have not picked a tight end yet, so I am really just going to have to go with Brenton Strange. But yeah, the waiver tool, it's more valuable than you could ever imagine. Because again, it's never been brought to the space before. So if you do want to get in on the waiver wire tool, you can go to fsroundup.com. I'll drop a link to that as well. Also on FS Roundup, you will get my top 200 rankings on a weekly basis. Again, that's a secondary, like, that's what, like, the rankings are secondary to the waiver wire tool. The waiver wire tool is what is really going to give you the most amount of value. All right. Here's that link. Okay. Kevin, appreciate the super chat. Mitch DM, what's going on? Appreciate your super chat. Trade away Gibbs and Purdy for Lamar, Brian Thomas Jr., and Swift. Full PPR. Gibbs and Purdy for Lamar, Brian Thomas Jr., and Swift. You know, the crazy thing is, like, I hate giving away Gibbs. I've seen a lot of people ask about Jahmyr Gibbs trades. I know why people are trying to acquire him. Like, I think he has a very, very good chance to finish as the RB1 this year. Ordinarily, I would say hold on to him, but you're getting 2 game changers in return. Like, you're getting not only Brian Thomas Jr., but Lamar at quarterback. And I think Swift is such a great flex play as well. It's kind of hard to turn that down. It really is. Oh, man, that's tough to turn down. I think I would take it. Yeah, I would take Lamar, Brian Thomas Jr., and Swift. It's gonna suck saying goodbye to Jahmyr Gibbs. Like I love Jahmyr Gibbs this year, but to get that in return, man, like that's almost impossible to say no to. That's an offer you can't refuse. That is truly an offer you can't refuse. Appreciate the super chat. Jacob Flores, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. I have Loveland as my tight end. Should I try to get a better tight end? Let me make this pick really quick, and then I'll answer the rest of your question. Well, my guy Jalen Coker is injured, and it's so depressing. So I'm not going to go with him. I'm going to go with Tesla. And I'm also going to pick up Cade Otton at the tight end position as well. You know what? Oh, man. Troy Franklin. I really want Troy Franklin. I do not have much of Troy Franklin. I might punt on tight end and just draft 2 tight ends in the last 3 rounds. I'm going to take 3 tight ends because I have such a weak tight end room right now. Yeah. Cade Otton went, so I'm going to go with Troy Franklin. Okay, so Jacob says, I have Loveland as my tight end. Should I try to get a better tight end? I can trade my Terry McLaurin for Hawkinson and Ridley. I'm scared Loveland won't cut it. Well, the thing about that is that if you're trading Loveland because you don't think he'll cut it, you got to get someone better than TJ, in my opinion. Like, TJ Hawkinson, to me, is a guy that at the end of the day, I just am lower on in the fantasy community. I have not liked him the whole season. It ties back to J.J. McCarthy and my lack of belief in him. And with T.J. Hawkinson as well. Like, just didn't look like the same player last year after the injury. And I'm not saying that he can't get back to that or even some level of that, but I just am not big on Hawkinson's price. And again, the thing about trading right now is that every trade you're going to make is based off where people drafted them. So you're not going to trade, TJ Hawkinson for Nick Chubb, right? Because Nick Chubb was drafted later in your draft than TJ Hawkinson was. You might be able to do that in week 4, but you can't do that before week 1. So to me, like, the way I would address this is if you're scared he won't cut it, then you're either going to have to do one of 2 things. Like, you got to shoot for one of the top 3 tight ends, or top 4 maybe. I would try to shoot for a George Kittle, a Trey McBride, or someone even like a Tyler Warren I think is acceptable to do that with as well. Because then, like, you won't have to do, like, you're going to have to give up something to get one of those guys. But with Tyler Warren particularly, like, Tyler Warren is still a cheap guy that I think is going to be better than TJ Hawkinson. So Tyler Warren is probably, if you don't want to severely overpay for a tight end like a George Kittle or a Trey McBride, maybe overpay isn't the right word, but you get what I mean. The thing that I would do is, for a discount, I would try to get Tyler Warren and send off Colston Loveland. They're both rookies. You don't know what's coming for either of them, but I can tell you Tyler Warren will be more important weekly than Colston Loveland will be. So that's my opinion on that one. I'm going to go with Theo just to make sure I snag him. And then we'll see if Torrey Horton makes it back to me. I like him. We'll see if I'll grab Torrey Horton. So then I'll go tight end last round. Yeah, to me, I would personally go with I would try to target a Tyler Warren rather than rather than somebody like TJ Hawkinson. I just have way more faith in the upside with Tyler Warren than I do with Hawkinson. And he's going to be a lot cheaper. You won't have to give up Terry. And if you do want to give up Terry, then you'd get something better in return. An upgrade of Terry and an upgrade at the tight end position as well. So that's what I would do. Appreciate the super chat. All right, let's go back up to the top. Does Jaden Daniels and Jalen Warren for JT and Caleb or Goff make sense? My current running back 2 is Warren or Dobbins. 1 is Bucky. It's a 12-team PPR. Well, Jaden and Jalen Warren for JT and Caleb or Goff. To me, it does make some sense. I'm not sure you could get that. Like, I think you would be, in theory, winning this trade. I'm not sure if they would take it. I think a more realistic outcome in a competitive league would be you would get like an Amarian Hampton or a Kyron Williams or Chase Brown maybe. And those are good options too. I'm not trying to dog those options. I'm just saying I don't think that you would have tons of success trying to get Jonathan Taylor for Jalen Warren essentially to replace my running back. While they do get the quarterback upgrade, the unfortunate reality with like trading for a quarterback or a tight end in fantasy is if you want one of the top guys, you're going to have to like sacrifice something big. So he may be on board with that. He might not be. I would try it because I do think you would be winning the trade in theory. Kyle Seibert Audio, what's going on? Should I stack Josh Allen with Shakir and Coleman in both of the flex spots, or should I use Jacoby Myers and Ollie Gordon? I would do one of them, probably not both. In a redraft league, I don't love the idea of super stacking as much as I do in a best ball league. I've got my reasons, just so you know, but I'm picking Dalton Schultz. I've got my reasons for it. He fits a lot of tight end breakout metrics for me this year, so that's my team right there. My team consists of Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, J.K. Dobbins, Braylon Allen, Trey Benson at the running back position, Mike Evans, Jalen Waddle, Jerry Jeudy, Keon Coleman, Jaden Higgins, Isaac Tesla, Troy Franklin, and Torrey Horton at the wide receiver position. A lot of rookies. Jalen Hurts and C.J. Stroud at quarterback. And at tight end, Brenton Strange, Theo Johnson, and Dalton Schultz. So make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support. We'll answer a couple more questions, then we'll get out of here for tonight. Okay, what else do we got? Yeah, Kyle, I would recommend doing one or the other, not both Keon and Khalil Shakir. That's my advice personally. I think that in a redraft league, I just don't love the idea of taking both of those guys. I can see the value for both of them. Like, I don't have a particular preference. I think Keon obviously provides the most amount of upside. But at the same time, you know, Khalil Shakir is definitely, I think, the guarantee in that room. Run CMC, what's going on? Tried my best from the 101. Chase, Jacobs, Bowers, Pollard, Lamar, Pickens, Pearsall, Golden, Eckler, Monty, and Godwin. Went for round 3 elite tight end, but Lamar was there 2 rounds later. What do you think? Oh my God, yeah, the value you got for Lamar is great. Like, that is so well worth it. I think it's a great move. I honestly, I think your team looks pretty solid. Like, Pickens at his value, I think, is okay. It's acceptable. I don't love it on, obviously. I've talked about it a lot, but, getting Bowers and Lamar is pretty OP. And I don't think that you suffered tremendously at running back. While I would try to do upgrades at the running back position, your wide receivers are strong enough to where you can make trades. So, the way I would probably go about it is pairing up one of your wide receivers, either Pickens or Pearsall, probably Pickens, because the community is higher on him, with either Brock Bowers or Lamar, and trying to get a significant running back upgrade. That's what I would personally try to go out and do. Or should I keep Jaden Daniels and go for a mid RB2 like Swift, for example? I could give up Odunze and or Worthy since I got those two, and Jettas and Terry. I mean, if you could go for a mid-end running back too, I think that makes sense. People are going to call me crazy. I would personally try to get Terry and send him for an upgraded running back. Like, I personally would try to do that. Like, I think the breakout potential for both Worthy and Rome, I'm willing to take the shot on. This is just me. Like, doing it my way, I will say, is more risky. But the way I would do it, personally, is I would take Terry and try to get a Travion Henderson, a Kyron Williams, James Cook, Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara type, to where I know I'm getting a huge running back 2 upgrade. And in addition, sending a wide receiver I think is overvalued this year. And I would rather just break on the bank out from Worthy or Rome or both. That's my move, personally. Now, I will say, again, that's not the safe move. The safe move would be to trade one of those guys who could break out but haven't yet for a mid-end running back too. But again, I think Worthy, I think he will be a top 10 guy without Rashee Rice. And I also think that Rome could easily outperform DJ in fantasy this year. So like I'd personally want to hold on to both of those guys. All right, let's go ahead and answer one more question and then end off the night. Adrian M., what's going on, man? Good to see you in here. Hey, brother, do you think Jake Ferguson will do good Thursday? I would say that he's got a realistic shot to do fine. Like, okay, the way I'll answer it is this. In theory, he has a shot to do well every week because this team just doesn't have, like, a running game. They will be trailing a lot because their defense won't be as good. So they're going to throw the ball a ton. So their pass-catching options, like, in theory, should do well. But, like, I cannot shake what I saw from Ferguson last year. Like, I get it. He was injured for some of them out of last year, but he was so bad. And he had every opportunity there with no wide receiver, too. Well, this year, in theory, again, they have a really good wide receiver, too, with Pickens. So, like, I don't see how he's much better than last year. Now, again, in theory, like, it should work. Right? Like, it's a cheaper tight end, and he could be in line for a good game and against a team that will handle them, so they'll have to play from behind. But at the same time, like, he had so many opportunities to do that last year, and he just didn't. And I get it, Dak wasn't there, but, like, at the same time, even when Dak was there, he wasn't good. So, in theory, he does have the potential to do well on Thursday, but at the same time, I could easily see him just doing nothing on Thursday night as well. But that's going to do it, guys. We'll end the night there. I appreciate y'all being in here for the breakdown and the live draft. Like the video and subscribe to the channel on your way out if you have not done so already. Running back rankings tomorrow. Make sure to stay tuned. Sign up for FS Roundup. Do not miss out on the automatic waiver wire tool. The greatest thing you could ever imagine in fantasy football right now. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace out, guys.